I'm Teresa Beanken, CEO of National Speakers Bureau Canada and Global Speakers Agency. We're one of the original speakers bureaus in North America, celebrating 50 years of service. NSB has the key. We help you unlock possibility in your personal and professional lives and for your teams through connecting you with our expert speakers for your own conferences and events. And I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker. Jim Harris's approach is so often win-win. We've worked with him for many years, and he's so thoughtful and fun, and his insights are always fascinating. Jim Harris stands at the forefront of AI revolution and disruptive innovation. As the #1 international best-selling author and globally recognized thought leader, Jim's insights have become indispensable for organizations seeking to harness the power of AI-driven opportunities. He's gained a significant following online with over 250,000 followers on X, and he's one of the world's leading keynote speakers, presenting internationally at more than 60 events a year. Association Magazine has named him one of North America's top 10 speakers, and this year, Tech Canada, part of Vistage, the largest CEO mentoring group globally, rated him Speaker of the Year, recognizing his AI presentations as widely eye-opening. Jim also leads strategic planning sessions with executive teams. His clients include American Express, Barclays Bank, Canon, Walmart, Zurich Insurance, and so many more. And he's here today to encourage our curiosity about generative AI and the possibility it brings. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It is so great to be here with you. Do you see my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Fantastic. So I've been working with NSB for now 30 years, and I want to congratulate NSB on its 50-year service to this amazing industry. We're going to talk about dozens of AIs today, but I'm going to start with this. I am so excited to be talking to NSB and GSA's event planning clients about AI and generative AI. Every single day we're seeing mind-blowing new applications that are coming out that are literally transforming the way business and associations work, the way government and society as a whole works. We're seeing use cases with productivity increases from 10x to 10,000x. That's staggering. Here's the first app. 我非常兴奋地与 NSB 和 GSA 的活动策划客户讨论人工智能和生成人工智能。每天我们看到另外两。Ich freue mich sehr darauf, mit den Veranstaltungsplanungskunden von NSB und GSA über KI und generative KI zu sprechen. मुझे बहुत उत्साह है कि मैं NSB और GA के इवेंट प्लानिंग ग्राहकों के साथ AI और उत्पादक AI के बारे Estoy muy emocionado de hablar con los clientes de planificación de eventos de NSB y GSA sobre. Je suis très excité de parler aux clients de NSB et de GSA sur l'organisation d'événements. So, why would I begin with this? Well, in Toronto, there are 200 mother tongues spoken. What are the implications for sales, for marketing? I was working with a convenience store chain, and the majority of their new franchisees have English as a second language. What are the implications for them to reach all their franchisees in the primary language of their choice? What about export development markets? You know, I just showed the largest, the language of the largest economy in Asia, China, and India, and Germany for Europe. What are the export implications? I can stand, oh, and by the way, this Y, I can go to stockimage.com and they'll let me use an image like this for $500 US for my presentations. It's so kind of them. Or I can go to DALL-E or Midjourney and type in, create the word Y in cursive on a white piece of paper and pin it to a corkboard. And after a couple of iterations, I get this to use for free in my presentations for the rest of my life. How will this impact marketing departments? I can stand in front of a green screen and record myself on my 4K smartphone, and after just 5 minutes, feed that into an AI, and it will understand my voice, my visage, my hand movements,
And then I can feed that an 80,000 word script and create hours of training and development video. What are the implications for training and development? Now, I've talked about real life avatars, like those avatars of me speaking different languages. What about creating a cartoon character of myself?
Ah, yes, instructional design. The glamorous world when you get to take a 300-page policy manual and turn it into a super fun, interactive e-learning module. Because nothing screams edge of your seat excitement like corporate compliance training.
So, how can I begin to use AI tools to make my corporate compliance training exciting? This is the famous Vermeer painting, Woman with Dutch Earrings. Um, and kids today are raised on videos. So, this is so 1700. What if I could animate her and bring her to life with AI? What would she look like? How can this be engaging for our educational system for young people? A friend and colleague of mine created an AI marketing company which grew from 0 to $10 million a year in revenue in the first year. I'm very proud of what she's done. She just has been working with a construction company that spent $248,000 on AI marketing, and that generated $8.8 million of new sales for them, a pure uplift. That's a 37x ROI. Do you think AI marketing is going to change every single industry? Because you might think construction, that's so old school, it's very physical. Yes, but there are functions within every single organization that can begin to use AI. So just to mention, this is a copyright presentation and everything I do with my clients is customized. McKinsey, the Global Institute management consulting firm, studied every single industry and looked at high and low use cases for the benefit that AI can generate. But just in the last 2 months, they revised upwards by doubling their impact on the global economy. $7.8 trillion of economic positive impact by 2030. So we really have to pay attention to these tools. Every year I go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. I'm just getting ready for it now. It's in the first week of January. And on the left, this is Pat Gelsinger, who's the CEO of Intel. And in January of 2024, he said Intel is seeing use cases with 10x to 10,000x increases in productivity. I want to play you a little clip from his talk being interviewed by this NASDAQ reporter in January of 2024.
Because these AI use cases are demonstrating such extraordinary economic value, right? It isn't just that, we're going to make money or the other technology providers are going to make money associated with it. You're creating new economic value, right? We're taking use cases, and having 10, 100,000, 10,000x productivity improvements. This is stunning. As a result. And because there's so much economic value in these use cases, the world is motivated to figure it out.
So every year I go to Davos in Switzerland for the WEF, World Economic Forum. And so I presented Pat's 10x to 10,000x to a panel in January in Davos. And on it was a woman who was in advertising. And I said, either prove or disprove, agree or disagree with this assertion of up to 10,000x productivity increases. And she said, I'm in advertising. The way we used to work is our whole team would meet with the client for a half day and we'd listen to their pain points and the campaign and their visions and their goals. And we'd go away for 2 weeks and create slogans and images and put them on foam core boards and come back 2 weeks later and present to them a series of options. And I thought to myself, that is so Mad Men. My dad was in advertising in the time that Mad Men is set. She said, now I do that all by myself in 2 hours with ChatGPT and Midjourney. Midjourney is for images. So when you do the math on this, this is a 7-person team for 2 weeks versus 1 person doing it in 2 hours. That's a 1000x increase in productivity. This is the kind of productivity, staggering results that organizations are getting. This is the most revolutionary technology in the world's history. I'm not going to go into this next example, but at Mobile World Congress, on the right side is the founder of Google's DeepMind. And they have a medical application. It used to take a PhD student an entire 5-year career to fully understand one protein. Proteins are used in our body to communicate between organs. And now the AI, AlphaFold, does that analysis in 2 seconds. So when you take it from 5 years of a PhD student's time to 2 seconds, that is a 1 billion X increase in productivity. And why is this important? Because would it be important to understand what part of a protein in a 3D structure goes rogue and creates cancer at stage 0? And then work on the pharmacological products that will only bind to 1 part, not 3 parts, so you don't get 2 side effects. So there's a billion X increase. So we've proved out Pat's assertion. I began studying AI in 1997 when IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov in chess. It shocked the world. It shocked the chess world. But what is different today is that was a $100 million project. I feel a Dr. Evil moment coming on. $100 million project. But today, with the release of ChatGPT publicly in November 30th, 2022, AI was democratized, and there are now more than 30,000 AI apps. We're only going to talk about a dozen here. So this is the biggest revolution in business history. So ChatGPT was released November 30th, and the first 60 days attracted 100 million users, 100 million users, fastest adopted technology in the world's history. And so Microsoft invested $10 billion in OpenAI, the developer of ChatGPT. And let's see how that investment has gone. That investment happened in January of 2023 to buy 49% of it. So Microsoft was worth just about 1.6 trillion when it made the investment, and that investment, the current value of Microsoft has doubled basically. So a $10 billion investment has had 150x ROI. And you can of course use Copilot because Microsoft is embedding the engines from OpenAI into every single Microsoft tool. So this is what is freaking people out. 30% of the current US work will be automated in whole or part by 2030. 30%. 2 to 1 Canadian employees fear AI. And so if you want to implement AI in your organization, you'd better be focused on the human aspect, not the technology aspect. So we'll talk about that a little later and in Q&A. This is the number of pieces of code, reusable code on GitHub, the largest repository of reusable code. And this last green dot is when ChatGPT came up. Since then, there's been a 4x increase in AI reusable code. So if you think the pace of change is fast and furious today, just wait till tomorrow. And globally, the spending on AI is going to increase 8x from 2023 to 2027. So many more AI apps are going to be coming online. This means that upskilling is 70% of my current skill set is relevant, but 30% is no longer. We need a massive industrial scale training initiatives. And reskilling basically says none of my current skills are going to be valid going forward. And if you're freaked out about that, think about this. 175 years ago, 80% of employment in Canada was in agriculture. Today, it's less than 2%. So we survived farm automation. But what happened was jobs changed, companies changed, new companies emerged, society as a whole changed. So this is really a story about change, not just the technology. The World Economics Forum most recent job report says that everybody needs an extra 20 days of training in this fast-paced environment. So the job impact globally by 2030, there are going to be 555 to 900 million jobs created and 400 million to 800 million jobs lost. So if I give you a binary choice, it can either be one or the other. You can only choose one of these. Do you want to be disrupting your industry or being disrupted? Do you want to be curious or fearful? Is this about learning or about sticking my head in the sand? And really, the opportunity is unlimited. But if we don't act and act immediately, it is going to be very serious problems for any organization or industry. Now, this is an article, a cover story, 2,000 word, that you'll get as a bonus at the end of today's webinar if you answer a few questions. I have a poll here, and if you get out your smartphone and open your camera app and point your camera to the screen, here's the poll. So that picture, do I look A, sinister, B, do I look evil, C, do I look demonic, or D, all of the above? Now, while you're answering it, the answers will come up in real time here on the screen. But this is so much fun because the magazine sent a photographer to take photos of me. They took 300 photos of me, and that was the one they picked. So we're not going to have time for everyone to vote here, but 81% think I look all of the above. So great fun. And this is going to be up, by the way, as a webinar, the video recording. Michelle Kim, and thank you, Michelle, for organizing today's webinar, is going to be up. You're going to need your smartphone for other things, so keep it out. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, this is my QR code. Just say, hey, I was in the seminar. So this is not my daughter. I love her face, but why is this happening? So one of the reasons is you've heard of Moore's Law. Way back in 1970, there were 2,000 transistors on an Intel chip. And today, NVIDIA's Blackwell is the chip that is driving the AI revolution. And there are 208 billion transistors on a Blackwell. And what that means in turn is the cost of computing has changed. In 1961, to do a gigaflop, and a gigaflop is a billion transactions in a single second, was 204 billion. And this year, a gigaflop is a single cent. And that is so 2024 a figure. That's a 10 trillion x price performance improvement over 63 years. We're going to see that same improvement in half the time going forward. And so things that were impossible now become possible. I was talking with this, the St. Petersburg Museum is dedicated to the Spanish artist Dali. And they've created basically a 7-foot-high iPad that you can actually interact with. They fed every single TV, radio, newspaper article about Dali in, and every journal entry in his diary that he wrote, and you can actually interact with it. So here's an example.
Greetings. I am Salvador Felipe Jacinto Dalí y Domenech, and I am back.
So imagine, I called the museum in advance of this. Imagine they had shrunk it down so it was on my smartphone, so I didn't have to stand in front of the 7-foot-high iPad. But on my smartphone as an app, I could ask it, Dali, why did you have melting timepieces? And he would answer me in real time. How exciting and engaging would that be for students in high school who are addicted to video? And then I could walk through the entire museum having Dali personally narrate about each and every one of the paintings that were there. So they haven't yet shrunk it for their smartphone, but I think they should. So the reason this is going to become so prevalent, in 2020, it cost $4.6 million to train ChatGPT. And when ChatGPT came out, it was only 450,000. But look at this, by 2030, it will only be $30 for a company to have its own AI, like the DALL-E one we just covered. So here's an explosive idea. During the pandemic, we had the highest deficit spending in Canada's history, more than the 75 years added together prior. And that led to the highest Canadian inflation rate in 30 years. It's now down to 1.6, but we're not out of the woods because your employees are paying more than 30% more for their food basket today. That's why we're seeing wage pressure. Now, why do I raise all this? Because AI, technology, and innovation are hugely deflationary. To make a phone call in 1980 from Toronto to Paris, adjusted for inflation, was $10 a minute. So having 30 people on a global strategic planning conference call with a phone bridge was $50,000. But today with Zoom, it's free. Look at how deflationary tech and innovation is. This is why companies are embracing AI. And it's not just the cost. Think about this. It took the airline industry 68 years to reach 50 million customers, and it took Pokemon Go 19 days. So my question to you is, are you changing as fast as the technology is changing? Now, I can hear what some of you might be thinking. Jim, Pokemon Go is a game for little children. Okay, then let's say ChatGPT, 50 million customers in 50 days. Are you changing as fast? I'm working with my clients to help them change faster. There's a Silicon Valley saying, speed is God and time is the devil. And with that, I want to play you a little video clip from Sam Altman. Sam is the founder of OpenAI.
The cycle here is basically talk to customer, understand pain point, build product to address that, get that in front of a user, see what they do, and then repeat the cycle. And this cycle is how you iterate and improve. The law of compound growth being what it is, if you can get 2% better every iteration cycle, and you have a chance of having an iteration cycle be every 4 hours or every 4 weeks, and you compound that over the course of a few years, you get in very different places. Make it one of your top goals to build the fastest iterating company the world has ever seen.
This is the aspect of AI that is not really deeply understood and one of the most profound benefits. So taking the company that has a 4-week improvement cycle of 2% means at the end of 1 year, the company is 29% better. But the company that's working on a 4-hour innovation iterative cycle and improving 2% every 4 hours is 20,000% better at the end of the year. This is why organizations and the organizations I work with are focused on speed. How do we improve faster? We have to focus on this. And a friend of mine has a global podcast for CIOs and CTOs. It's the #1 podcast for IT leaders. And I'm going to play a little clip from it.
When the executive team at Chick-fil-A decided that they wanted all of their frontline stores to start saying, my pleasure, as part of the transaction, you have any idea how long it took them to get that rolled out to all their frontline stores?
3 years.
6 years.
6 years?
It took 6 years, right? So if you have this like amazing leadership organization like Chick-fil-A, and it takes them 6 years to get something, rolled out that's that simple. Well, in the world of technology that we all work in, like how much harder is it to get these far more complicated, complex things rolled out?
This is the real pain point that organizations have. Speed. AI will have a different impact on every functional aspect inside an organization. You can see this. I've been talking about AI since '97, and this is a 2017 or 2018 talk I gave about how AI in autonomous vehicles will disrupt dozens of industries. It's one of the dozen article or resources that I'll give you at the end of this talk. But people came up to me and said, Jim, fascinating, but nobody's ever going to get in an autonomous vehicle. And I want to just play a little clip from Waymo that's been operating in Phoenix, Arizona for the last 8 years.
Hi, Avery.
Maybe that's a good thing.
She said what?
She said what? It drives better than you do, babe.
Bye, robot.
It's not just Phoenix, it's Austin, Texas, and San Fran, and 19 Chinese cities have driverless robot taxis. There have been 100 million miles driven in autonomous taxis globally. So I want to argue that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, meaning it may not be in Toronto yet. So for our industry, imagine you could create magical experiences for your audiences with AI. So imagine I could take video of myself and my younger self and have us on the screen at the same time and give myself advice to my younger self. What would I say? I'd say there are no such things as mistakes. Don't fret over them. There is only learning. And you're magnificent. Focus on learning always and reframe that. There aren't mistakes. How can we create magical experiences for our audiences? This is one of the great powers of AI. So we're going to go to questions here in a minute, but I just want to say everything that I do is customized. There are 20 different ways I can add value for you, and we only discover those by having a conversation. All my presentations are customized for these industries and others, and I'm equally comfortable doing virtual work, which we're doing right now, as I am with in-person work. So I look forward to some questions here, and boom, I'm going to turn it over to our team here. And then I have a brief survey at the end, which is going to give you the QR codes. Actually, I'm wondering where that slide went. So I'm going to stop for a second and turn it back to you. Boom.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that journey through kind of the evolution of AI and the significant impacts for organizations, especially when you're talking about speed and iteration. And, it feels impossible to keep up with the speed of change, but we can't ignore it, that's for sure. So thank you for that. There was some conversation in the chat. Feel free to add any additional questions. And you touched on it about the impact on jobs and your thoughts about the elimination of jobs, or more so, there was a comment about, does that then give more time for more clients because you can work with so many more people effectively?
Yes, well, what we're going to see, so I have a client who's a $100 million IT firm, and they primarily do government RFPs. So they have a 6-person team, and all they do is government RFPs. And it takes them 1.5 to 2 days. Well, in ChatGPT 4, I can upload a 60-page PDF and say to GPT, summarize the 12 key points that I need to win this RFP. 1 second later, I have a 3-page document with 12 points. And then I can, in a query, say, write me the winning proposal based on these 12 points, knowing that it's government procurement policy, so consult government policy, and our skill sets, consult that, and boom, 3 seconds later, you have something that's 50 to 90% of the way there to a final proposal. And you don't submit that. That is just an initial draft. Like, I think about AI like a super bright intern. I don't publish what he or she gives me. It's just the starting point, but it's cut out 50 to 90% of the work. Now I customize it. So that 6-person RFP team can now support $200 million of proposals every single year. But that assumes we keep the current win rate. If we improve it, which AI can do, it always improves my work, we might get a win rate that's 30% higher. So that 6-person team can now support $260 million of business every year. So we're going to see huge productivity gains, and companies that are really smart are not going to lay off people, but they're going to say our 6-person team can now have one person go on mat leave and maybe never come back, and we still can support all the growth that we need.
Thank you for that. And that spawned a couple of questions and discussions as well. Does it still allow for differentiation if all the content is coming from the mindset of ChatGPT, for example? You did talk about customizing with your own thoughts, but touch on that.
Yeah, so here's the thing with that. I write a lot of articles, white papers. I'm writing a current book on AI. And by the way, that's one of the resources you can get if you leave your email. I'll give you an advanced copy of that book. But I'll say to ChatGPT, I want to understand the API economy, and boom, give me the top 20 points about what I need to do, or what are the most interesting insights on AI in the API economy. And it will go and create in 1 second 20 points. And then I say, you know, what's really interesting is point 1, 7, and 19. Write 500 words on each of them. And 2 seconds later, I have 1,500 words on 3 points. And then I might say, write what the critics would say about these 5 points in 1,500 words. And that is now my starting point about what I write about the article. In other words, I'm not publishing what ChatGPT gave me, but it is the most powerful tool. I want a weight loss program. This is my age, my sex. Boom, give me a weight loss program. A diet. I want to learn how to, cook beef bourguignon. It'll give me a recipe instantly. The things that I can do with it are mind-blowing. And ChatGPT is what we think about when we think about AI, but it's the poster boy. But it is only one of 30,000 AIs. I tried to show some of the diversity here today.
Thank you for that. I agree. For me, it's become a conversation. This is what I'm thinking. Can you help me articulate it a little differently, or asking some questions? Okay, number of questions still coming in here. There was a question about, you touched on the human side of AI, and there's a question from Nick about how do you manage the soft skills and helping people manage the fear of losing or the fear of change?
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen while I'm answering this, so that people can get those resources that I promised.
Great.
So if you point your smartphone to the screen, you'll get this QR code. And if you just answer for, it would take about 60, 75 seconds, you'll be able to download a PDF that has a dozen resources in it, including a 1-hour course that if you spend an hour, and I highly recommend you spend an hour. This course is free, by the way. If you spend an hour, you will become an 801 level ninja prompter instead of an entry-level prompter. But back to the question. 2 to 1 Canadian employees fear AI. And so this is not a story about technology, it's about organizational change. You are not going to successfully implement AI when the majority of people in your organization fear AI. You really need to engage people. You need that industrial scale training. You need to work at the mindset level. You need to work at the skills level. And this is what we do. We're working with organizations on training, on coaching, on boot camps. So the speaking, which is what I do, people get an aha experience like we've had today in the webinar. That's just the first starting point. Then where do I go? What do I do? CEOs that I work with are overwhelmed about this, and we work with organizations to help them. So the real work begins once we say, oh my gosh, we have to do this. And if we don't, and our competitors do, we're going to be losing market share. So there is urgency around this.
Thank you. We've got a number of questions coming in. Like you, I'm just going to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us today and your engagement in the program. We can see how it's getting everybody's wheels turning, and we're at a place of inflection where organizations are really trying to figure this out. For those who need to leave at this half-hour mark, thank you again for joining us. We are here to help you with speakers for your own conferences and events and help bring Jim to your organization. For those who would like to stick around, Jim, how is your time? I can go through some more.
I am willing to stay here and answer questions as long as people want to be here.
Okay. I'm going to keep going then. Thank you. One of the things you touched on just in the previous question relates to something that's come through in terms of John's wondering, what is the top pain point that leadership has when evaluating AI, and if it's good for their organization or not, or how to use it?
Well, the top one is what we've already talked about. It's that fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people fear something, they're not going to engage in it. Secondly, if let's say that RFP team of 6 people, if they think, hey, if I implement this AI that allows us to create RFPs in half the time, they're going to fire 3 of the 6 of us. If that's what people are thinking, do not be surprised that they do not implement the AI successfully. So the very first job of leadership is to create psychological safety. No, this is just going to allow us to scale. And if one of our 6 wants to have their first child, our team is going to survive and thrive despite not only being 5 people. So this actually is a job enhancement. This is going to give you more skills. This is going to make you more marketable. This is going to allow for more flexibility for our workforce. So leadership has to step up around this psychological safety and these key messages in order to implement AI successfully.
Thank you. And with this abundance of information and easy access to it, there's a question in that context from Jeremy saying, okay, if there's a surge in AI generated content and the likelihood of future AI models being trained on that AI content, is there a risk of creating a feedback loop that diminishes diversity of thought and reduces the quality of insights over time? Like, how can we ensure that it's continually rich and varied and high quality content?
So I'd go back and refer to that question on my writing a column 1719. So I don't publish anything that I get from ChatGPT. It is a research source. It is not the final end product. So I have to Jimize everything that I do. I have years of deep experience, and this tool is no replacement for it. But the enhancements that I get, for instance, when I first used the language translation, a Chinese member of the audience came up to me and said, Jim, I just have to tell you, your Mandarin is perfect. And I said, xie xie, which is thank you, the only word I know in Mandarin. And a German woman came up and she said, your German was great. Where did you learn to speak German? It was excellent. And I said, Dankeschön, the only word I know in German. So here's the thing. Think about how this can enhance us. It can give your employees superpowers. And a study by the Boston Consulting Group and Harvard showed that there was a 40% increase in quality output from white-collar consultants who were given ChatGPT 4. If you're a $100 million company, these companies that I work with in the SME space typically are $100 million. That's a $40 million uplift. Do you think companies have the luxury of ignoring a $40 million uplift if their competitors are using it? So we really need to look at these, and this is the role of leadership. And this raises an issue about some of the dangers. And so I just want to say the bad actors globally are using AI for nefarious purposes. So I was on a TV show, and the host is a very public person. There's a lot of YouTube videos of her talking, videos on the media site and on YouTube. Somebody had taken an AI and trained it on her voice. And her family got a phone call that went something like this. I rolled the SUV and it's burning and my wallet was in there. I'm in the hospital, thankfully, only minor burns, but I have no money and I'm starving. Can you please send some money to nursebetty@gmail.com? And in her family, they've created a safe word, which means if she doesn't, I'm going to make this up here, if she doesn't say jalapeno peppers in the conversation, you know it's not her. Have you done safe word training with your family? Grandparents are especially vulnerable to this. And has your company done cybersecurity training for every employee given these AI tools for the bad actors? So we have to train every single person. I used to represent Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Stephen advocated that every single person be trained in the 7 habits, because that's what facilitates cultural change and a common language and framework to problems, challenges, and opportunities. And it's the same for AI. I believe every single person needs to be trained in these AI tools. And that's one of the things we're busy doing with organizations, helping them raise revenue, cut costs, avoid problems, shorten cycle times, and improve people's work. And here's a great place to start. What do you hate doing? Rekeying data. Well, imagine AI could transfer all data from one system to another and accelerate our processes so that somebody's job is not just 24 hours a day or 8 hours a day keying in data. So what are the dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs that your people are doing that are brain dead, that they hate, that we could automate and give them more interesting, exciting work? This is part of the value proposition.
Thank you for that. And it addresses one of the comments or questions by Matt. So I think you've helped cover that about the responsibility of the private sector to create fulfilling jobs. And it opens up the opportunity for that, the way you've described it. And then also the challenge for a consumer to understand if they're interacting with AI rather than a human. And some of those tips like the cybersecurity training and safe words, I think are some good places to start.
Absolutely. I'm just putting in the chat, if you didn't see the QR code, the link to go ask or answer all the questions, and then get the dozen resources, including the amazing, and we ask everybody in our organization to take that 1-hour course, which again is free. It's the best hour you could ever invest. I've also just put in my LinkedIn. So back to questions.
Thank you. I've got 2 more. So one is from Lana, and again, it relates to the human side. Your thoughts on the value of personal interaction versus AI? Like, where do you see that going? People think about how the COVID lockdown spurred loneliness issue for many. Is AI positioned to do the same? We're going to be online so much more.
We're online a lot. In fact, younger demographics spend more time with their cell phone than they do watching television. And social media is all about comparison. And so there is a huge mental health problem for especially young people who are anxious and depressed. And here's an interesting AI app. You know, it's 4 a.m. and I've just been on Instagram and I feel my life isn't worthwhile because everybody's doing so much better than I am. As you know, this is if I'm a teen. Is there somebody on suicide hotline for prevention? And the answer is not always. We're seeing AIs be trained to help people during these dark periods. and these AIs are trained on the best answers that empathetic professionals can give. So these tools, if directed for good, can actually save lives. So these are some of the use cases that I find staggering that my clients have shared with me over the last 2 years. And as I say, I've been talking about AI since '97, but to be honest, nobody was interested in it because you needed 100 million. Well, now every company can be using AI tools, and things like Copilot, they're built right into your Microsoft 365 license.
Thank you for that. And so the last question, you've touched on it a bit in terms of a best next step. So you talked about the course, and if you could just clarify what that course is, we've got a question about that. And then any other first steps that an organization should take or things to try out just to get comfortable if they're not using it already?
So the first thing I'd say is we all need to personally play with these AIs. And one of the things that AI tools do is improve my competence. So there was a Boston Consulting Group study with Harvard from 759 white collar consultants being given ChatGPT-4, and they found up to 40% improvement in performance. And the biggest improvement, this is wild, came from the lowest performing people. So imagine something that you're not good at, you now can have a superpower. So I was working with a CEO, and he had a huge fear of speaking in public, which is strange because that's CEOs do a lot of that. But he had to toast his parents on a 50-year wedding anniversary, much like celebrating NSB's 50th year. And so this was something he was freaked out about. So he took a biography of his mother and his father and fed it into ChatGPT. He said, I'm doing a 50-year toast at their wedding anniversary. I want you to create a short 3 to 5 minute speech that is poignant and funny and everything else. And after a couple of iterations, he had this, he delivered it, and his mother was crying and laughing. And she came up afterwards and said, oh, honey, that was amazing, to her son, who was terrified about speaking in public. And the 11-year-old grandson says, yeah, Granny, he used ChatGPT. And Granny has no idea what he's talking about. Oh, that's lovely, dear. But what I'm trying to stress here is that this can help you do things. Another CEO that I work with had never done a SHRED grant. This is a unique Canadian tax credit that you can pay a company $20,000 to file your SHRED grant. She'd never filed one. And let me tell you, there's no fun in this paperwork from government. So she said, oh, somebody has asked in the questions, what is the code? The code is NSB 2024 if you go without the QR code. Anyways, this SHRED grant, she, on 3 hours of work on ChatGPT, never having done it before, was able to submit a SHRED grant, which is a tax credit. And she got $80,000 back for her company for her 3 hours of work. And when you annualize that, that is $50 million a year. I feel a Dr. Evil moment coming in. $50 million a year. Now, my wife makes terrible fun of me, Leanne, when I annualize everything, but that's what I do. That's so me. So here she has no competence in filing a SHRED grant. And in 3 hours, she has successfully done it and not had to pay a consultant $20,000 to do it for her. So these AI tools can take me from zero competence to exceptionally competent in very short time. So I do not speak Mandarin, but I can market my services to the world from Toronto if I am a manufacturer in 30 seconds. 30 seconds, this AI will give me amazing, Mandarin that I can market into Shenzhen and get Canadian government export development grants. So I go from zero competence in Chinese to being enough to sell anywhere in the world. This is the power of taking, rather than spend 400 hours learning minimal Mandarin, I can be competent immediately with this AI tool. So this is the speed aspect.
Thank you, Jim. And I think that it's also the accessibility aspect. You're coming to us from Toronto, but you're speaking about impact all around the world. I know you're traveling all around the world, helping organizations, and we're proud to be a part of that with you, and look forward to seeing you helping so many more organizations into the future. Hopefully everyone feels like this is a good jumpstart for a potentially an exponential 2025 if we take into account some of the compound opportunities that AI can bring.
And I'd just like to thank the entire team at NSB. I've been working with NSB for 30 years, which will make me one of the longest serving partners for NSB. And I want to work with you too. I'll spend an hour on the Zoom getting at all what you'd love to achieve for the best ever conference, and then interview a dozen people. Everything I do is customized, and it is such a delight to work for 30 years with NSB, and congratulations on your 50-year anniversary.
Thank you, Jim. Always a pleasure. Take care, everyone.